Good.
Welcome to the AFC East Summit show, folks. The only show on the internet willing to ask the tough questions like Osiris Torrance, man or myth? And if myth, what kind? This and more right after this. Hey guys, welcome back. Here we go for another Summit show. We just finished up preseason week number 2. We've got 1 week to go. We've got roster cutdowns from 90 to 53 all at one time. We've got my man Philly Fins fan. Why did you have to add that Philly part in there? Keith, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I had to throw that in there because I even tongue-tie myself with that. So it's if you get it right, then I know you really care.
Better, you've been reading Dr. Seuss all day. All right, Tyler, aka Prussia, my man. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Enjoying weather. It was 70 and cloudy today, so New England for you.
70 and cloudy. Usually just get cloudy up there.
Yeah.
Dude, I love it. It's fall weather, man. And you know what fall means? Fall means football.
It wasn't fall weather because it was humid. It was very humid.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
Close.
All right, Brett. Been a long time. Long time no see. How you feeling, man? 10 words or less.
I'll try to keep it less than 10 words, but feeling good. Back to normal and everything. Getting the house ready and everything. It's just been a tough time and everything, but glad to be back with the AFC Summit, boys.
Good. Glad to see you, man. Glad to see you. All right, man. We have had a heck of a second week of preseason football. So we're going to talk a little bit about preseason football, the second week, what happened in our games. We're going to get a little bit into roster cutdowns, but first, let's go ahead and talk about what's happened in the NFL. Any big news happening this past week? Keith, anything happening around the Dolphins this week?
Well,
tell me all about Brian Flores and Tua Tagovailoa, please.
Yeah. You know, it was jarring to hear that interview because it's the first time I've ever heard Tua explicitly come out and talk about his time with Brian Flores in Miami. So it's kind of jarring to hear that their relationship was not only irreparable, but like really, really beyond toxic. So, you know, Tua said what he said, and my first reaction was to say, I'm even more thankful for Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel came in and built Tua back up after Brian Flores spent 2 years pushing him down. And so it makes me thankful to have Mike McDaniel in the fold. And it makes me like Mike McDaniel, you know, all the more. You know, whether the Dolphins go on to win 5 Super Bowls under McDaniel or they fizzle out and Mike McDaniel ends up getting fired, I will always be thankful that Mike McDaniel came along when he came along. And then secondly, Brian Flores responded to Tua's comments today. And
tell me about it.
Yeah, well, he took a really mature response. You know, he didn't fire back a la Tyreek Hill and Noah Lyles. He basically said, I need to take this and become a better man and a better coach, and I need to learn from this and be better moving forward. It was really nice to hear. I still don't want Brian Flores as a head coach. And I think he potentially, his time with the Dolphins may have precluded him from ever becoming a head coach ever again. But I did like his response. I thought it was a very mature, very well thought out response. And he did wish Tua luck in everything that he does moving forward. Again, I'm not going to say that there's no bad blood because I don't know that I can ever fully forgive Brian Flores for the way he treated Tua for blowing the whistle on the Dolphins after he left. Not saying I don't understand it, but you know, I am loyal to the Dolphins, not Brian Flores. But this was a nice healing exercise, and I think everybody can move forward now. It felt good.
Take us through this, because like I remember when Flores got fired, and I remember what it was like for me at least when Mike McDaniel got there, and he was all praise about Tua.
Yeah.
Then Tyreek got there, and he was like, he's the most accurate quarterback I've ever played with. And it was just this huge like meme about like everybody's gassing this dude up.
Yeah.
Now in the last 2 years, he's been very good. What's your journey been like?
Well, my journey was, first and foremost, Brian Flores wanted Justin Herbert over Tua in the draft.
Did he? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. He wanted Justin Herbert. He wanted Justin Herbert badly, and Justin Herbert went a pick later to the then San Diego Chargers. Or were they Los Angeles then?
Los Angeles by then.
No, they were there. Okay. Either way, I wanted Tua. In spite of the hip injury, in spite of the fact that he doesn't have ideal height, size, arm strength, I wanted Tua because I saw into a guy with Drew Brees, Peyton Manning type of accuracy and anticipation when he throws the football. And that's what I wanted for the Miami Dolphins. I wanted the Dolphins offense to run like a finely tuned machine, like those offenses used to. That's what I wanted. So I wanted to. Brian Flores did not. Brian Flores wanted the ideal height, ideal size, ideal arm strength. So when Tua got to town, he was still rehabbing his hip. Ryan Fitzpatrick was still in town. Ryan Fitzpatrick was kind of balling out. Honestly, he was playing. He was more Fitzmagic than Fitztragic. I'll say that. And from there, it was time to get Tua in there. The Dolphins there was no future with Ryan Fitzpatrick as the Dolphins quarterback. It was time to get Tua in there. And he came in there. I remember at one point he led a comeback win against the Saints. He looked good. He looked good for what he was, a quarterback who was coming off of a catastrophic hip injury, who probably wasn't physically ready to play in the NFL just yet, but he was figuring things out. And it didn't really come out until his second season that Brian Flores just wanted nothing to do with this guy. And he resented the Dolphins front office for drafting Tua over Justin Herbert. He resented the Dolphins front office for asking him to lose games only to draft the quarterback that he didn't want. He resented the Dolphins front office for trading away a stalwart left tackle like Laramie Tunsil. It makes sense why Brian Flores was upset. But Brian Flores had one of three options here. He could have, A, made chicken salad out of chicken scratch and just made the best of a situation that was less than ideal in his eyes. He could have, B, resigned. When the Dolphins drafted Tua and he wanted Herbert, he could have just said, you know what? We have different visions for how this franchise is going to go moving forward. I'm out. See you later. Or option C. He just chose violence. And that's the option he went with. And I think his press conference today kind of showed that Brian Flores has grown from that experience. Mm-hmm. And he's gotten better, hopefully, for his own sake. Because it's not healthy to live with that much anger. It's not healthy to live with that much resentment. So I'm hoping that maybe he's moved forward, and I'm hoping the Dolphins have moved forward as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, no, completely agree. And like you said, Tua coming out, I've never heard a player that honestly mentioned how horrible his relationship with his head coach. It was pretty hard to hear, especially
yeah.
So it is what it is. I'm glad that it's sort of water under the bridge on both sides, so they both get to move on. Tyler, let's talk a little bit about New England. Have you guys announced your starting quarterback yet?
No, we haven't, and they don't plan to until after the final preseason game, I think. Sources say.
All right.
Sources, sources.
Yeah.
Traded away Judon. That was this week, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Time goes by.
Yeah, right? Last week we were speculating, and now we have it.
No, he's gone. Yeah. They apparently had equal offers from Atlanta and Chicago, and they let him pick. So
he picked Chicago.
Atlanta.
He picked Atlanta.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like, oh, you're right. No, he picked. Yeah, no, it's so weird to me. Like, are the Wings that good at Magic City?
I would have picked in his scenario. I think I picked Chicago, but we're not
Obviously.
gonna like. But I guess he wanted to live in the South or something.
Well, they're two somewhat similar franchises, right? They both have. I think the Falcons are better in the short term, and Judon is 31 years old, whereas Chicago has more potential moving forward. Like, I don't think I think people are saying that the Bears are going to be improved this season, but I don't think anybody's saying the Bears are going to be Super Bowl contenders this season. Because of the rookie quarterback, because of other factors. I think Judon going to the Falcons, it makes sense because he says this team's closer to winning, and I'm closer to the end of my career.
Yeah, I can see that, actually.
I guess.
Put it that way, it makes a lot of sense. Very cool. Right.
Also.
I'm sorry, Tyler. Did you have more?
Just more quarterback stuff. They're as far as I've seen, at least, it looks like Drake May might start later in the season, so they might have Brissett start off the season and then wait until either things go poorly or the first 4 weeks are out of the way, especially because those will be hard weeks. So I don't think it'll be a very stable quarterback situation until May does get in there.
Okay. How are you feeling about your? What do you think the reasoning behind that is? Is it speculatively? I would assume it's your offensive line is trash and your number one receiver is Tyquan Thornton, but.
Yeah, offensive line is not very good. Receivers are, I think, better than expected, which isn't saying much. But, our Patriots receivers being better than expected is like a miracle these days. Every single year we come in like, hey, we'll have an average receiver room this year, and it just sucks. So, hopefully this year we actually get an average receiver room. But yes, primarily the offensive line. They didn't really invest much in it this offseason, which kind of annoyed me. But,
speculatively, if you had to guess, do you think your wide receivers are better or worse than the Bills?
I like our receivers better than the Bills. But that's kind of the side effect of taking an enormous dead cap hit on Stephon Diggs after all this time. So
I'll get to Brett on that one. I'll see how he feels. Brett, how's it going, man?
Everything's going good, man. I'll stick with talking about the Bills, though. The biggest thing is, a lot of injuries all the way around. We signed
it's like Murderer's Row, I saw.
Yeah, it's pretty much, you step on a push pin and then you're getting injured in Buffalo. So a lot of that has to do with, in my opinion, goes back to the strength and conditioning coaches, and they need to do a better job of getting these players ready. But the quarterback room, we've lost Mitch Trubisky to a knee injury. We don't know how long, but it's been determined week to week. But we did get Anthony Brown off of the Raiders and brought him over to this offseason.
A week ago, didn't you guys also lose your other backup quarterback?
We did. We lost Shane Buechele, who's from SMU. He had a good career there, and lost him for the season. Also lost Chase Claypool for the season, but he decided to he decided to take an injury deal, and now we're in agreement on a deal so he can sign with another team. We also have a lot of injuries to the safety room. DeMar Hamlin's now injured, so that adds to the mix with Cole Bishop as well as Mike Edwards. Pretty much every single position you name it, there's an injury. We lost Matt Milano, which sucks. The only position that's actually been healthy has been the defensive end room, which is incredible to say as of right now, but knock on wood, something could happen coming up, and that's why John McDermott decided that he was going to pull the starters this week, and we're going to see a lot of backups. We're going to get a full game of competition between the 2s and 3s as well as the 4s, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do on Saturday.
Cool. Has anybody investigated whether or not you built the new stadium on an old Indian burial ground, or what are the theories?
The current stadium, the supposed story is that we built it on a graveyard, so that's why there's the curse of the Buffalo Bills there. So we're hoping that the other one isn't involved in the Indian burial ground, which would really put a damper on our chances of getting a Super Bowl, and I think it might not be in my lifetime, which is why started drinking again and started dealing with a lot of issues. If you didn't watch the last show that I was on with the Nickel City Mafia, it was the rush hour. We stayed up until 12 o'clock at night, pretty much talking about, our drinking stories and our heaviest drinking days. And, that's normal in Buffalo now. We're all pretty much heavy drinkers and alcoholics, and our lifespan is probably in the 50s, I imagine, right now.
It sounds like
totally different show we got over there in the Nickel City Mafia. This one's a little bit more family friendly, I think.
Yeah, it sounds
It's
like
a little bit
earlier. Over in Buffalo, there's no chance of happiness, and all you can do is drink the pain away.
Hey,
Don't encourage it, please, Tyler.
I'm just going to say this right now. The last thing I'll say is, The Simpsons did an incredible analogy of what Buffalo is all about, where, there's a song about it, and it's called, Upstate New York. So if you Google The Simpsons, you get to watch it and everything. And they talk about, we're fond of our booze, and, our wing sauce is great. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
Well, I hope you enjoy your booze. I know in Boston we had a championship parade earlier this year, but our cities stick to our respective areas. I
Tyler, are
suppose.
you a Celtics fan?
Oh, of course. Come on. Gotta root for
I used to
him.
like you, man.
All right, guys. Let's go ahead and let's take a second to recap a little bit what happened in our final preseason, or our second to last preseason games. Let's start again back with Keith. What happened in your preseason game? Anything great? Anything amazing? Tell me more about how awesome that edge rusher is.
Which one? Chop Robinson or Mo Kamara?
I'm going to go with Chop Robinson, but I like them both.
Now, you know what? Chop Robinson had, he had a tackle for loss in that game. Met the running back right as the quarterback was handing him the ball. Nice play. He was unblocked. Like, the offensive line forgot he existed on that play. He's made some plays in the preseason. There was a play where he, blew up a play in the backfield. He wasn't blocked by the Dolphins' offensive line. Like, these are the plays that everybody's seeing. I want to see Chop Robinson beat a guy. I want to see Chop Robinson spin move a guy or swim move a guy and get around him and make a play in the backfield. I'm not saying he's incapable of that, but too much was made of this play he made in the backfield where he was literally not touched. The offensive line didn't even look at him. And he was the 36th best defensive player on the Dolphins, according to Pro Football Focus. So he made that play in the backfield, and yet Pro Football Focus wasn't impressed. And you know what? Neither was I, because that was the only impact play he made the entire game. Who I was impressed by on the Dolphins defense was Muhammad Kamara. Muhammad Kamara was in the backfield a lot. He had a sack that was then changed to a tackle for loss. Muhammad Kamara was impressive in that game. He does more with less than Chop Robinson does. He is not the physical specimen that Chop Robinson is, but he's got a tireless motor. Not saying Chop Robinson doesn't, but I think he knows how to use his leverage better. I think he knows how to use his 250-pound frame better than Chop Robinson does at this point. And this goes into what I'm saying about Chop Robinson being raw. And Muhammad Kamara is more of a finished product.
Well, Muhammad Kamara, just for the audience, is 24 years old. He's about 3 years older than Chop Robinson, so he's had a little bit more time to simmer. And he's had one great year in college, and that was an excellent year. I think it was like 16 sacks last year.
Yes.
But he's a little bit older. He's had a little bit more seasoning. He's done so at a much smaller program. So I would say that Muhammad Kamara should be a little bit closer to a finished product.
And to the point.
And I'd also point out that while he's not the same level of physical specimen, the dude still had like an 8.8 RAS. So like the dude is still a freak by himself.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of both. So like when I scouted both of them, I was a huge fan of both of them. So I like both of their games.
Yeah. And I get it. But Muhammad Kamara, the Dolphins got him in the 5th round. He was a steal at that. He was a steal at that price.
Mm-hmm.
He was probably closer to a 3rd rounder, but again, he looks like more of a finished product to me than Chop Robinson.
No.
Offensively, the guy who really stood out for me was Eric Ezekama. Now, he was a 4th round pick. He was the 4th round pick of the Dolphins in the 2022 draft, and he has battled catastrophic injuries, like near career-ending injuries
over again.
Yeah, and he's finally healthy, and he looked like the playmaker the Dolphins were hoping they were getting when they drafted him. He had 6 catches for 67 yards. He had an end around where he was caught 8 yards in the backfield, slipped out of it, and got like 4 yards out of it. I mean, it was.
Folks, if you get the opportunity to go ahead and look this up on YouTube or on Twitter, wherever it is you get your highlights from, look up Eric Ezekanma. He literally threw people off of him multiple times while on an end around that seemed to be blocked the wrong way, came back the other way and made like 8 yards out of it. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's fun.
So this is why the Dolphins have kept him on their roster, in spite of the fact that he had a neck injury last year that kept him out the entire season. The season before that, he had injuries. At this point in his career, he has 1 catch for 3 yards. And yet the Dolphins are looking at him like maybe he can be a wide receiver 4, maybe he can be a wide receiver 3, because he's 6'2". He's about 190 pounds. He's fast. He's strong. He's a guy that can make noise for the Dolphins.
He's got a lot of ego in him.
Especially in light of Ritter Craycraft's injury. He will be out probably half the season. Malik Washington isn't quite ready to step up and probably be the slot wide receiver the Dolphins were hoping they were going to be getting. And Odell Beckham is still on the PUP list. So there's space for Eric Ezekanma to come in and make some noise on this Dolphins offense. There's space for him to be a wide receiver 3 on this Dolphins offense.
I would love him to be the wide receiver 3.
Especially based on what I saw on Saturday night. He looked really good. He looked ready.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd say that about Eric Ezekanma, especially after last season's neck injury.
He's such a violent runner. He's so
he's
everybody's favorite receiver. Just to watch in the open field, he does that Debo type stuff. I liked him in college. I liked him for the Dolphins. Tell me a little bit about Chris Brooks. Every so often I hear that guy's name, and then he pops up.
Well, he's in concussion protocol right now.
Is he?
Yeah, he went down in the game. Actually, I'm not going to call it a cheap shot, but it was close to a cheap shot. He was on the ground. Guy came in, gave him a shoulder. Chris Brooks is done for the game. He's in concussion protocol. We'll probably see him in a week or 2. But he did have a 59-yard run that was pretty explosive in that game. And
it was a fun one.
Yeah, it was. Now, the Dolphins' rushing attack in that game, aside from that 59-yard run, was not very good. Aside from that 59-yard run, the Dolphins averaged 2.1 yards per carry. Patrick Paul, Dolphins' second-round pick, was not very good in this one. He got beat on an inside move that caused a strip sack on Mike White. Things of that nature are going to happen to a rookie offensive tackle. It's okay. I'm not mad at him. Teron Armstead is the starting left tackle for the Dolphins for a reason. But he needs to clean that kind of stuff up, and he can't get beat on inside moves like that. Guy faked outside, went inside, and Patrick Paul barely touched him.
Yeah,
can't be having that, especially Mike White's a right-handed quarterback. He's protecting Mike White's blind side.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be having that.
Sure.
But other than that, the Dolphins won. Hooray! Preseason week 2. They won a meaningless football game. It's awesome.
I mean, could have lost it. That'd have been worse.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and check out some of these comments here. What do we have coming up?
All right. So,
Alan, Jake's dad. I think the Bills' receiving core is going to surprise people this year.
Brett?
I think so too. I think it's going to be shocking how much you guys are terrible. Just kidding.
Brett, what do you think about that?
Yeah, they'll surprise. It's just not quite the way you were imagining.
No, I think they're going to be okay. I do like Curtis Samuel in fantasy, especially. I think so too, Big Al. Yeah, no, definitely. The Bills fans are huddling together for warmth. Yes, please smash the like button. Let us know. Say something down in the comments. Tell me how I'm wrong. I believe you.
Well, you are rooting for the Jets, so
I am rooting for the Jets. It's true. So I am trying to kick Bills' ways, and it's not fun to kick on New England right now. You guys aren't doing great, and the Dolphins.
Yeah. Even though I should pull the trigger on a bet for Chop Robinson.
Yes, you should. You shouldn't spend that much money on it, but if it's still like 20-1, like put $5, win 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not your life savings on that. That's don't bet anything you can't afford to lose.
Don't put the mortgage payment on it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wouldn't suggest that one. How are we doing right now? Bet on Harris having over 850. What's this Najee Harris nonsense? Am I missing something, Brett?
So yeah, the numbers for Najee Harris right now are extremely low on his over/under for his rushing yards. And with Arthur Smith being the new offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I expect that number to be very high, especially if you remember the past couple of years with Derrick Henry. He's been running the ball a lot with Henry. Well, actually, I'm sorry. When he was with the Tennessee Titans, because he was also with the Atlanta Falcons, the best years that Derrick Henry had were with Arthur Smith as his offensive coordinator. So I think that Najee Harris is going to have over 1,000 yards easily. I wouldn't be surprised if it's over 1,200 yards this season just rushing the ball. I think he's going to be a touchdown machine as well. And if you're looking into fantasy as well as somebody to bet on, I would definitely bet on Harris going over the 1,000-yard mark, if not even the 1,200 mark.
I think Jaylen Warren taking his job, right?
Jaylen Warren is actually injured. Yeah, he injured himself in the Bills game. Has a hamstring injury. Shouldn't be missing about 4 to 5 weeks. And I don't think that, especially with that injury, you got to remember, the cold weather is going to happen in Pittsburgh and Buffalo later in the year. And that's where I think most of the yardage that Harris is going to get is towards the end of the year, especially when the fantasy playoffs open up. This is a team that has a very easy schedule, and I think that they're going to be able to move the ball quite a bit. And with a new offensive line, that's what I like with them. And Arthur Smith, they're going to have a lot of play calls for Harris in the backfield.
How'd they move the ball against you guys this past week?
They did move the ball pretty well. I'm not going to lie. I know it was an ugly game. It was one that, a lot of people would like to forget in Bills Mafia, especially in the rain. But this was more of a game to test out the offensive line from both sides of the ball, the defensive line, see if the trenches are looking really good. And I think both sides of the ball for Buffalo were very mediocre in terms of the offensive line play. There's some plays that I think that the line would want back. But from the Steelers side of things, I felt like they did a very good job. Russell Wilson looked decent. And, I mean, it's Russell Wilson at 35 years old. You're not going to get Russell Wilson in Super Bowl prime. But I think that they did a good job of moving the ball down the field. The Bills just had a good game plan with the ones, and they were able to get to Russell Wilson a couple of times with Greg Rousseau out there. But once Rousseau was out of the game, it seemed like they were able to move the ball down the field, and they just couldn't capitalize in the red zone on both sides of the ball from the Steelers and the Bills side of things. But liked what I saw from the team, and there's a lot to build off of too. This is only week 2 of the preseason, but a lot of guys that can do some good things for the Bills as well.
Yeah, so with transitioning to that, how do you feel about the Bills' performance all in all?
All in all,
offense and defense.
Offensive wise, I would say that that's probably a D rating. Definitely not the best performance, especially with the quarterbacks in play. Mitch Trubisky did not look the best. He had an interception in the game. He also went down with the knee injury, so that's concerning for me. Then Ben DiNucci came into the game and, has pretty much run the ball as much as you can, see what the running backs can do because he doesn't know the playbook. So from the Bills side of things, I mean, the biggest concern for me is who's going to back up Josh Allen. And when Josh Allen, not if Josh Allen goes down, when it happens, are the Bills going to be okay? Because Josh he's in my opinion, a reckless quarterback. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, because when you're a reckless quarterback, you can get injured so easily in this league. And we've seen it with Tua. We've seen it with Aaron Rodgers in certain senses. Yes, Aaron Rodgers did have the Achilles injury, and that wasn't his fault. But we've seen it with Aaron Rodgers. We've seen it with New England quarterbacks as well. When you're reckless, you're going to get hurt. And I want to see what the next quarterback up and the next man mentality is. And I was talking about it with the Bills chat and everything in the offseason. I said it's definitely important to get another quarterback early on, because I didn't like what I saw from Bichelle. And I felt like Mitch Trubisky needed some more competition. And the Bills did bring in Anthony Brown. We don't really know much about him, but he seems like he's going to be more of that mobile quarterback. And looking back, I wish we would have drafted Joe Milton instead of him going to the New England Patriots. And I think you got a steal there with him. He's going to be somebody that, if Drake May doesn't work out, it's kind of that similar situation to what we saw with Robert Griffin III and Kirk Cousins back in the day. This could be something where if one of them doesn't blossom, the other one can.
Okay. All right. Yeah. It's
I wouldn't be opposed.
No. He only needed a 5th round pick to get him.
Yeah.
Not opposed to that idea.
For sure. All right, Tyler, tell me a little bit about New England this past week.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with like the less controversial stuff and then move to the big issue, which is quarterback. It's not an issue, but the big thing. Defense looks pretty similar to last year. Only really big differences are going to be on the defensive line because we traded Judon, so we're going to have a big opening at edge, which it looks like Keon White's going to fill along with like Josh Uche.
Real good.
Yeah.
Dietrich Wise too.
Yeah. Dietrich Wise has been steadily consistent these past few years and just doesn't really get mentioned, but he's really one of those guys that you're glad to have throughout this entire rebuilding period. Linebacker looks kind of similar. Raekwon McMillan looks good. He will probably get injured at some point, which is unfortunate, but it's
been a demo.
Yeah, it happens. It's unfortunate, but he looks good. And hopefully he doesn't get injured, obviously. The safety and quarterback room, I'm just reading through, I was reading through it, and it looks almost exactly the same as last year. Because we didn't really add much, to be honest. It was a good room, and we invested elsewhere. Other than that, at receiver, it's looking relatively straightforward. Jalen Reagor looked good, but so did other receivers. Let me see if I can pull it up in just this moment. This is undrafted rookie David Wallace, who had a pretty decent return. Looked okay, but we'll see.
He had a couple of decent returns. He looks really solid, like in terms of just like catching the ball and bringing it back comfortably. Like he looked pretty. Like there might be a player there. He was doing some coverage too, I think. Some punt coverage. I should specify, not like in the back or in the secondary.
Yeah. So yeah, it's looking decent. Other than that, I think tight end. There's a battle for tight end 3, but there's not really a conclusive leader for that area or anything. You got Hunter Henry, you got Austin Hooper, and then after that, we'll see if they want someone with good potential, like a veteran who can block. There are options, and I guess we'll see what the coaching staff goes with. But the really big things right now are offensive line and quarterback. Because I'll start with the offensive line, I think, because our starters and our backups are not very far apart in terms of skill for some of them. Obviously, Mike Nwenu is just great. David Andrews is steady, solid, but he's 32, so there's some danger there. Other than that, Seti So looks okay, but we'll see. Hopefully he can just stick at guard and be good. I'm forgetting the guy we picked in the first round, but whose name I can't remember because he's been such a disappointment. I actually forgot his name.
Cole Strange?
Cole Strange, yeah, him. It just blanked. He's physically unable to perform list, so he's kind of out of the picture. Yeah, other than that,
you said you wanted your controversial one. Let's get to the quarterback, man. Let's go.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, left tackle Vidarian Lowe looks. He's performing about as expected, which isn't very well, which isn't a good sign. Quarterback, Drake May definitely looked better than Brissett, at least as far as I'm concerned, in that preseason game. He looked like he took some steps forward, which is really good to see, and you love to see it. Where Brissett's kind of but you kind of know what you have in Brissett, I think. So there's not much to be drawn from there, I don't think. You're going to have some ups and downs, and that's going to be about it. But really the big question now, because Drake May does look pretty good, is whether putting him in and having him be the quarterback one from the start of the season is going to help him or hinder him in his development. Because generally, at least in conventional thinking, you want to sit your quarterback and let them develop for a year. But if you have a good team, there's not really harm to letting your quarterback play in his first year, because at least in a lot of the argument against it is going to be that they might pick up bad habits, they might not be like ready, which is certainly part of it, and that if a quarterback goes out there and he's not quite prepared, he doesn't have a grasp of the playbook, and he doesn't have a good team around him, he's going to develop bad habits, which will hinder him down the road. But I'm not sure, at least, that Drake May would have any problems with being ready or commanding the playbook. He looks like he has a decent understanding of that, and that wouldn't hinder him. The big problem right now is the supporting cast, because the offensive line just looks really, it's not pretty. They keep wanting to stick Mike. They want to stick Mike Nwennu at guard, which I understand. He's an amazing guard. Yeah. But he's also a very, very great tackle. And it's, at least from, in my opinion, in the NFL, you'd much rather have a better tackle than a guard. The tackles are just more important for you because pass protection. But also it's easier to find good guards or serviceable guards than it is to find a good tackle.
Mm-hmm. That hasn't always been my experience, Tyler.
I've been here in New England with Skarnecchia for these decades. Yeah. And he just pulls people out of college, and he's like, "You, my friend, you are going to be a good guard." But that's been my experience, at least. So I don't understand why the coaching staff is so insistent on sticking Nwennu at guard above all else. But I think that having the fact that both of our tackles are pretty mediocre with Lowe and Okorafor, if I pronounced that correctly, I think that I'm afraid that if they start May, that's going to be detrimental for him in the future.
Yeah. Okay, so you are team sit May.
I'm team sit May until at least week 5.
Okay.
First 4 weeks, I don't think you want to put a rookie quarterback out there those first 4 weeks.
You guys have a super late bye week too, though. It's not like you can just rotate it over. Like your bye week's like week 12 or something like that. Something crazy.
Yeah, the bye week is like something we'd get during the Brady years when we wanted to do a playoff run. It's not really a rebuilding team bye. So, if you're gonna put May in, you probably want to put him in somewhere between weeks 5 and 8. I think, just based on getting the first 4 weeks out of the way and then seeing where you're at with the team. After that point, you might just want to sit him for the year. I don't think you want to start him when there's nothing left for the team to accomplish, because then you're going to risk injury. And I also think it's a disservice to a rookie quarterback to kind of just throw them out there when there's nothing to play for.
That's it. I'd also point out the fact that Patty Mahomes sat until week 17.
Yeah, he played because
he skipped the first 16 games, and he only played. Or skipped the first 16 weeks and only played last week of the year.
Yeah, he did.
So there is some merit to at least getting a little bit of run at the end of the year, even if the season's not particularly relevant. Though I think that also had to do with Alex Smith got hurt. I don't remember exactly, but it was.
I think they had already secured some.
Yeah, they were locked into a playoff spot.
They secured their division, but they couldn't get a bye, I think, if my memory serves. Okay. And so and the Chiefs were also pretty good that year, which I think is if the Patriots were good and they got playoff seeding, that I would fully support it. But we're not doing that. We're
not how it's ending up this week. Let's go ahead and take a look at the comments again real quick. We've got a few. Good evening, guys. What's up, Dennis? Sorry, I'm taking an extra 10 minutes or so to get to these. 1,250 yards for Najee Harris. You have another believer. You've converted one. I will never be fooled again by Najee Harris. So.
No, I'm sitting here 850 sounds generous for him.
It does. If he gets 450 carries, maybe. All right, so I know it's sad to be a Pats fan these days, but Tyler, add a little color there. I disagree. I'm a monocolor kind of guy. I like the grays. I like the blacks. Tell us a little bit about that map behind you, though. Somebody was asking about that.
Oh, this is like a I guess I'll take a peek at it. It's like a European, a historical monarch chart. So you can't see the top. I can maybe show you the top of it, but it starts all the way up at Charlemagne at the very top there.
Oh, wow.
And then it goes all the way down, and this is today. So you can see that the Europeans have done a little bit of monarchy and a little bit of inbreeding.
We're talking about Charlemagne as in the first Holy Roman Emperor?
Yes.
That man, that not
guy.
the god, the other one.
The actual Charlemagne guy. So
Yeah, the first
send
one.
us back down.
All right.
But yeah, it's
cool. I love it, dude. You're a huge nerd, and I freaking love it. It's one of my absolute favorite things about you.
Also, to answer the last question, Pats are getting like 4 or 5 wins this year, probably. On the good end, it's either 4 or 5, or it's like 8 or 9, I think. Because if it's 8 or 9, then like the offensive line really overperformed, and the defense carried us to a few wins.
You don't think it's gonna be like 2 or 3? I thought you were rooting for that.
Well, I'm rooting for 2 or 3, but I gotta be realist. Unfortunately, the game where the Dolphins come to New England is in October. It's not like December. If it was in December, the Dolphins would come up and just freeze to death on the field, and we'd have an easy win. But it's in October, so they might live through the game. Like I'm counting on maybe like a monsoon game against the Bills, and that kind of, the craziness. But we'll see.
That's fair. All right, cool. Let's keep going. So we have. I did not mention the defensive side of the ball, but absolutely loved what I saw out of Joe Andreessen.
Yep.
All right. Incredible job of getting off of blockers and getting into the backfield. All right. Tell us a little bit about Joe Andreessen. So I'll give you a second.
Yeah. So Joe Andreessen is a Buffalo guy, born and raised in Buffalo, went to school at Lancaster High School, which is right down the road from Orchard Park, New York. He also went to Bryant College and then went to the University of Buffalo. So he's playing the trifecta role after being undrafted, signs with the Buffalo Bills off of a tryout basis in rookie minicamp. And he got the start last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers and did a phenomenal job. 12 tackles, 2 of those tackles for loss on the field for pretty much 3/4 of the game, especially with all the injuries that the Bills had at the linebacker position with Terrell Bernard not starting. Save him from getting injured, because God forbid if we lose Matt Milano and we lose Terrell Bernard in the same week, I might start drinking myself and probably become a very large alcoholic, and I don't want that to happen. I'm sorry to say that again, guys. But after all these losses and everything, it's hard to see. But Andreessen looked the part. He did a very good job of getting off of blockers in the game. He got into the backfield, was all over the field. The one thing that I will say about him, because I'm not going to hype up somebody that doesn't deserve a little bit of feedback to him as well. He needs to work on his pass coverage. There's times where he was out of position, didn't really get to where he should have been in the zone scheme. I watched the Pittsburgh game about 5 or 6 times this week, and just struggled with where to be, where to cover a tight end in those situations, and that's an area that he can improve on. But Sean McDermott has been raving about him, as well as Bobby Babich, our defensive coordinator, and it looks like there's going to be a path for him to make the roster, because we have Matt Milano injured. We also have Nick Morrow and Eddie Olafascio injured. So there could be a very good chance of him making the roster and being a pivotal backup for the Buffalo Bills.
Understood. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always nice when you can get a local boy in there. It's even better if they can actually play football. Wish we had one of those. We've only got Jeremy Ruckert.
Yeah. And if you look back to the University of Buffalo over the past couple of years, there's been some good players that have come out of there, especially going back to the Sammy Watkins draft. You got Khalil Mack as a product that went out there, and then you add in Cam Lewis, and Cam Lewis is nowhere near a Khalil Mack. I'm going to tell you that, but a good backup player in there. You got Jamarcus Ingram, and you have Joe Andreessen coming out there. So Buffalo, in a few years, it could be a 53-man roster of University of Buffalo boys.
Wild.
And they'll all be drinking.
You guys heard it first here. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and take a look. We've got a couple more comments in here. We have a couple of people asking about who's going to be the starter in New England. Tyler, I think you sort of hinted towards this already. It's going to be Brissett, and you're expecting that May takes over?
Yeah, I think Brissett starts the season, and I think May takes over. So, but I wouldn't bet on it. I could see May starting the season, and I could see May sitting the whole season still.
What do you think the odds are?
I think it's like 65% chance that Brissett or like 45% chance Brissett starts and then May comes in later. Like a 30% chance that Brissett just starts the full season, and then like a 25% that May just starts the full season.
Wow. 25% chance he starts the whole season, I feel like, is really high.
Yeah, but I think if he does really well in this preseason game, they might try adjusting the offensive line a little bit too here. And because, I mean, May kind of has just much more physical tools than Brissett does right now, especially.
He's Drake May, third overall pick. Jacoby Brissett. Just the guy that happens to still be in the league 10 years later.
Yeah, pretty much. So,
left tackle, Caden Wallace.
Currently Vidarian Lowe, but that kind of makes me want to cry. I would love to see Caden Wallace.
Man.
It reminds me when we had Marshall Newhouse when Tom Brady was quarterback, and it was just not good. Not good.
Okay. Did football start last Saturday? A lot of sports. Did dodgeball start tonight? This chat's going wild, guys. I can't even answer. These aren't even questions. These are just people talking crazy. Go down a little bit further. It gets nuts. Anyway, where are we now? Who has not talked about their preseason game yet?
You haven't, Anthony.
I have not. All right, I have nothing to talk about. The Jets are terrible. No. Again, we're looking at the preseason. The offense didn't work especially well. The offensive line was not particularly impressive. But again, it's all backups. Like, we're not even like deigning to start like somebody that seems like they might make the field as a starter on the offense at all, and really not much on the defense at all. All I can tell you from our last preseason game is that our second team defense is better than anybody else's second team offense. Like, we're really, really good in terms of defensive depth. Offensive depth, I feel comfortable with our running backs, but we've spent 4 draft picks in the last 3 years on running backs, or 5 draft picks in the last 3 years on running backs. So like, they should be good. Izzy Abanikanda continues to be buried as running back 4, continues to outperform 2 of the 3 guys in front of him. So like, whatever, man.
Good depth, at least.
Unless you guys really want to hear about like tight end 3 for the Jets, like, I don't think that any of this matters all that much. Going forward, I think they're going to have a little bit of trouble because I don't know what you do with the roster spot for Hassan Reddick. Like, he's going to be occupying a 53-man roster spot, and you don't even know if he's going to show up. We've got some literal, actual depth at defensive end and defensive tackle, and we're going to want that spot. And if this dude's not going to show up, I don't know what to do with myself. Because, like, if we cut one of these dudes that's, like, balling out, I think Braden McGregor had the highest PFF grade on the Jets, like a 90.1 at defensive end. And he's, like, the 5th defensive end right now for the Jets, not including Hassan Reddick. You're going to cut that dude for, like, a dude that's not going to show up? Like, we need answers to some of these questions. I'm fine with – what's that with – you ask him. Last I knew, he was in Japan. There's a picture of him in a full kimono garb in Asakusa. By the way, I know it's Asakusa. I lived in Japan, not far from Asakusa. I biked up there. It was awesome.
I just can't imagine that. Like, oh my god.
His size? Me neither.
The situation has gone completely sideways, Anthony. It's just
so weird.
It's so weird. It's wild. It's wild. It was wild when he was still in Philly, and then he went to New York, and it got wilder.
It's funny. I was thinking to myself, like, if I want to do a bit on like what's happened with Hassan Reddick, it would be like, the Jets don't have Bryce Huff anymore. Oh, okay. Where did he go? Oh, he went to Philadelphia. And then Howie Roseman called up Joe Douglas as a joke and said, "Hey, you want Hassan Reddick?" And then offered him a trade, and then Joe Douglas accepted. What? Yep. And then, he never showed up again. Great. Fantastic.
It's a really,
Mekhi Becton, that guy that was so bad we couldn't even start him at tackle anymore. Where'd he go? Oh, Philadelphia? Ha, ha, ha.
He's also going to be the Eagles starting guard. We're starting right guard.
Yeah, he's their starting guard. He just beat out the guy that was their other starting guard. Tyler Steen, beat the crap out of him. They didn't even play him in the second preseason game. He's so good. So we had a tackle who wasn't even good enough to play on our team, and he went to Philadelphia, a much better team, and is the starting guard.
Yeah.
For like $5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
This is
Hey, look, that hurts me too because the Dolphins could use a starting guard as well.
It feels like us with wide receivers. It's like they're in New England and they're like just on the ground like crying constantly, not trying to play the game, and they go like anywhere else and they just immediately become these amazing like top tier. And I'm like, guys, can we please?
I mean, in your case, at least I know it's because you hired a defensive coordinator to be your offensive coordinator.
This is true.
Yeah.
We have a good excuse. What's your excuse? Yeah, exactly.
Our excuse? I don't know. It just seems like a joke. Like Jerry, like it literally, like Howie Roseman's like, "Hey Joe, I know we're pals. I'll give you Hassan Reddick," and he's like, "Sure. What do you want? 3rd round pick? Tee hee hee hee. Sure. Here you go." Did he just?
I know you'd never fleece me.
It's absolutely a disaster. I can't. If we wouldn't have traded for Hassan Reddick, I would have been fine with it. You know what? We spent 2 first-round picks on Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald back-to-back. If you told me we were going to bring back Bryce Huff because we're going to let those guys play, I'm going to be fine with it. But you're going to also take a 4th-round pick in the future and trade it for Hassan Reddick? Do we really need that? And then you're going to have the gall to show up these guys in preseason that look good? Tell me it's because you can't scout these guys. Tell me it's because you can't find enough talent. Don't tell me that you can find these guys off the waiver wire, find these guys as UDFAs, and you still have to trade future draft capital.
For a guy who doesn't want to play football.
Exactly. Doesn't want to play football for us. Let's be clear. He asked for a trade.
Trade him to Japan. I'm sure they have Japanese football teams over there.
They do, but they're playing football. He'd be great, but his talent would be wasted.
Well, I mean, no different than it is now. So,
well, Tyler, I mean, what you're saying about the Patriots, I think they're going to be a lot better than you expect, especially when you have a new offensive coordinator in Alex Van Pelt, who I believe is going to pretty much transform this offense. Whether it's going to be Jacoby Brissett, who has experience with Van Pelt, or if it's going to be Drake May. I think the offense is going to look pretty good. I think the wide receivers you're going to be surprised with. You got Fortin over there. You got Demario Douglas, who can be a dog when he's healthy. And you have 2 tight ends in there with Hooper, as well as adding in Hunter Henry. I drew a blank on his name. But I think you're going to have some good days this year. It's just, I know the expectations are very low with your win percentage and everything, but don't be surprised. I think you're going to be probably in the top 11 to 12 when you're drafting next year. I don't think you're going to have the number 1 pick. I really don't. I think you're going to.
I don't think so either.
I think you're going to have a surprising year. Don't get me wrong. I think it's, you're going to find some wins, and I think Gerard Mayo is going to be a good coach for you guys. He's going to instill a very tough defense, as well as a demeanor of, we're not going to take any BS anymore, and we're going to run the ball. We're going to have the ball in the trenches. We're going to play good defense, and we're going to not turn the ball over, and that's how you're going to win games.
I mean, I'm not sure how we're going to run the ball, but I can hope.
You have Ramondre Stevenson. You got some ballers out there, and you just got to.
We got good running backs. It's just the line is so bad that I don't see. Like, I could see like a short passing game, like how James White used to do it, where you have the running back out of the backfield and get a lot of yards that way. I just don't think we can run a traditional running game this year, very well at least.
I think what he's starting to get at is the idea that, like, for me, the whole reason that you don't start Drake May isn't just because the offensive line is bad. It's because it's going to take like 6, 7, 8 weeks for that offensive line to gel enough to be even useful. Now, could you guys rattle off a couple of wins towards the end of the year? Sure. Dennis in the chat is thinking that New England can go 7-10. I think 7-10 is a bit rich. I think I could see you guys in that 5 to maybe 5 range, somewhere within 1 or 2 wins of 5. I think is perfectly fine. 7 seems like a ton, but But
especially with all the other teams in the division that are still pretty good.
I think you guys are going to start out like 0-4 or something. I think it's just going to dig a huge hole early on.
I think if we were in like what's the bad division these days? Like if we were in the Packers spot in the NFC North, no, the NFC North is good this
pretty
year.
Strong, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're looking at maybe like the AFC South is a perennial dumpster fire, but even they're not so bad now with like.
Yeah, now they have like Houston's good.
Together.
Houston's good for some reason. Like Jacksonville looks okay.
Tennessee's terrible.
Well, Tennessee's terrible. Yeah,
it's a bottom 5 team for sure. Will Levis is awful. He's a meme.
Maybe the NFC South.
Levis used to have a good girlfriend. She broke up with him.
Levis,
no, he has a new girlfriend.
He has a new one.
Good mayo in his coffee. That goes.
Yeah.
There goes
the girl on The Bachelor. He's dating the girl on The Bachelor now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Victoria Fuller.
I don't know who that is. I'll look her up though.
I don't watch TV.
I'll bet she's hot.
I don't watch TV.
Of course she's hot. He's a millionaire.
Well, I watch TV, but only one
millionaire with
a week.
Girlfriend.
No, but
Facebook. He's got an ugly wife.
But going back to New England though, when I look at what they're trying to do right now and replacing Bill Belichick, giving you props again, I'm going to say this: one of the best coaches of all time. Trying to replace somebody like that, and when you have a rookie head coach and you have a rookie quarterback, I think the right thing right now is to just play a veteran out there, somebody that has experience. Let Jerod Mayo and Drake May understand what the game of football is going to look like. Get up to speed with what you're going to see out there. Maybe wait until week 5, week 6, somewhere in that range, like you're mentioning, and just get a grasp on the playbook. Make sure he understands that playbook and can go out there and lead the team. But I mean, I remember when Josh Allen went out there for the first game against the Minnesota Vikings, and we saw this kid that looked like a freaking bowling ball go out there on the field, and he hurdled Anthony Barr. And at that moment, I said, this is the quarterback that the Buffalo Bills needed. And when he went out there and he showed his leadership, that's what made this team very special. And we didn't have a leader at that time. We lost Fred Jackson. Kyle Williams was at the end of his career. We really needed that veteran leadership. And I think that that's one thing that's missing in New England is that who's going to be that veteran leader. And if you can find somebody in Drake May that can take control of the organization and prove that he belongs in the NFL, and other guys can rally behind him and play better football with him out there on the field, then you're going to have a really good team. And I think it just comes down to if May can be a leader. And that's what I need to see out of him. And he's done a good job when he was with North Carolina. I just want to see it translate into the NFL.
We'll see.
Fair enough.
I don't think May should see the field this year.
Yeah, no, me neither. That team's a dumpster fire. Poor kid.
I don't think May should see the field at all this year. I think the Patriots line isn't very good. I don't like their wide receivers. I like Ramondre Stevenson, but there's not much to like on the Patriots offense. I think you put Brissett back there because Brissett is the consummate professional. Like Anthony said, he's going to be on an NFL roster 10 years from now, not because he's a great starter, but because he's a professional quarterback, and he's going to be a good stopgap. He's going to be a good backup. I would not let Drake May step the field this year, especially if Brissett stays healthy.
I keep hearing like he learns the playbook and whatever, and that's perfectly fine. That's old cliche stuff. But like 9 times out of 10 in the NFL, plays don't go as they're scripted. Setting protections is super important.
Yeah.
Knowing what it's like to like get hit and get back up, and then get hit again and then get back up, and knowing that you can just settle for a punt. Knowing that you're down 3 scores and you don't have to try to win the game. Guess what?
Yep.
It's the NFL. And when you're a bad team, Drake May most of the time. Sorry.
The last thing you want is Drake May being like Sam Darnold was in New York, seeing ghosts out there, or David Carr in Houston. How many young quarterbacks' careers have been ruined by being on just terrible teams with
DJ Manuel?
Yeah. Tim Couch.
DJ Manuel, Geno Smith. He was able to get his career resurrected, but like
took him
bad habits I was talking about earlier is if you're sitting behind a bad line, it's not going to end up well.
They talk about even getting bad habits, but a lot of the time when you're coaching, you're trying to coach the bad habits from college out, and those come right back. Those come flying back the second that like a blitzer comes unblocked and you get conked in the head.
Yeah.
And then it happens again. And then you throw a bad interception. And then the announcers are making fun of you. And your
And then,
girlfriend
like, your
breaks
Mac-
up with you because of how bad of a joke you are.
And then you're Mac Jones, like throwing the ball like 10 yards short of a receiver, and
Right.
instead of interception, instead of an easy touchdown, it was just
Yeah, like
Exactly.
easiest way to ruin a quarterback. Nathan
Exactly.
Peterman. Yeah, no, what could have been? What could have been with Nathan Peterman?
No, there's a
He had it
there's a
all.
long, sad history, a long, sad graveyard of quarterbacks who went to bad teams, who might have been good, who, under the right circumstances, might have been better quarterbacks than they turned out to be. I'm not talking about your Jamarcus Russells and your Ryan Leafs who were destined to be busts from Jump Street. I'm talking about guys like Sam Darnold, who had all the promise in the world and might have been a serviceable to good quarterback had he have not been drafted on that Jets team that just kind of left him out to dry.
Adam
He had
Gase.
been asked to start day one.
Yeah,
For that otherwise horrific Jets team.
right.
Speaking of that, by the way, Sam Darnold's going to be starting for Minnesota
Yes.
with like.
Yes. I mean, not that they have any other
Decent
choice.
I mean, not anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked Drake May coming out of college, Tyler. I did. He was my favorite quarterback in this draft class. He still is. Jaden Daniels is probably going to start week 1. Caleb Williams is definitely going to start week 1. Drake May was my favorite. That being said, he got drafted into arguably the worst situation out of the top 3 quarterbacks.
Of the 3, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. 100%.
It's best that he just sits.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get to the reason that we got here tonight. Let's go ahead and talk about some guys at the bottom of your rosters that you could see making the final 53 or even into the 53 into the season, because we know some of those bottom tier guys wind up getting cut anyway. So let's start off with Keith. Keith, what do you have for us? Bottom 53.
Yeah. So I actually went through. I did an exercise just for myself. I went through and wrote down the guys that I thought were definitely going to make the Dolphins roster. Definitely going to make the Dolphins 53. I came up with 47 guys. That leaves
that's not good.
So for all you math aficionados out there, that leaves 6 roster spots for the remaining 40 some guys. So
majors out there.
I went through. Braxton Berrios wasn't a guaranteed roster spot, so I gave one to him. That's 48. Then the Dolphins needed another running back because I only had Mostert, Achane, and Wright as the Dolphins running backs. I gave the nod to. Now they've already cut Salvon Ahmed. Salvon Ahmed is a free agent now, so I gave the nod to Jeff Wilson. And maybe even Chris Brooks, but we'll get back to that. At cornerback, I gave a spot to Saron Neal. So now we're up to 50 guys. There's a battle, as I see it, linebacker between Duke Riley and Quentin Bell. Quentin Bell's had a nice camp. Duke Riley is a special teams guy. You know what you're getting. But if he's going to be taking reps at linebacker during the regular season, then you're going to have a bad time. Duke Riley's not a starting linebacker. So I would give the nod there to – that being said, I'll give the nod to Duke Riley because Duke Riley is great on special teams. That's 51. Next, I have a battle between Lester Cotton and Ryan Hayes on the offensive line. Lester Cotton started a couple games for the Dolphins last year. Ryan Hayes was a 7th-round draft pick for the Dolphins last year. I see Ryan Hayes going back to the practice squad, so I think Lester Cotton makes the roster. And that's 52. Next, finally we have Willie Snead or Eric Ezukama. And I've already talked about Eric Ezukama this show, so I'm going to go with Eric Ezukama as the Dolphins' final man on the 53-man roster. That's leaving out guys like Isaiah Wynn, Odell Beckham Jr., and Bradley Chubb, who are still on the physically unable to perform list. There might be a spot opening up because Trevor Craycraft's probably going to start the season off on that list. But man, this was tough. I was surprised when I wrote down the players that I thought were definitely going to make the team and came up with 47 players. I was like, damn.
You guys got a good roster this year.
We do. We have a good roster. We
A good top end.
We have a good top end, but we also, I mean, being fair about it, Anthony, we went to great lengths this offseason to improve our depth, something that we didn't do last offseason.
Yes.
You know, which is why we let Christian Wilkins go, which is why we let Robert Hunt go. We used the money that we would have paid those guys and brought in 10 other guys who are going to be starters / death pieces for the Dolphins. Guys like Calais Campbell, Kendall Fuller, guys like Jordan Brooks, Aaron Brewer. You know, they did a good job of kind of rebuilding the roster and rebuilding the depth on this roster. Don't love the offensive line still, but the defensive line is looking better than I originally thought it would. This is a weird time of year because as a Dolphins fan, I'm normally, doom and gloom. I've been trained to be doom and gloom. The Dolphins haven't won a playoff game in 24 years. But I can't help but be full of hope right now and be full of optimism, which is weird for me. It's a strange phenomenon I'm going through right now.
I want to get that checked out.
Yeah, I know. I really should go to the doctors for this. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about things. I'm feeling good about the roster. I'm feeling good about the fact that the Dolphins didn't sustain any catastrophic injuries, like Jalen Ramsey tearing his meniscus his first day of training camp.
Yet.
Shut up. So yeah, that's the Dolphins. And, I could go through the Dolphins 53-man roster, but you don't want to hear me say, oh, well, Tyreek Hill's going to make the roster. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Keith. That's the bottom of the 53-man roster. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. I'm sure I'm not right. I'm sure there's a couple of guys I'm wrong on, but for the most part, I'm looking at the roster and I'm feeling oddly optimistic.
I am unfortunately going to have to cut myself short. I'm going to unfortunately have to cut myself short in a minute or two here. So if I can just go through a couple of the more interesting
Tyler.
New England. So just going down, I have a monitor. Wide receiver, I think Kayshon Boutte looks good last year, but Thornton looks kind of better in training camp. Rieger's kind of giving him more for the money. Other receivers talked about earlier look decent, so Boutte might get cut. Boutte, I forget how to pronounce. Tight ends, Mitchell Wilcox versus Jaheim Bell. Wilcox is more blocking, Bell more like receiving upside and younger. Probably Bell, but we'll see. Apologies if my dogs are going crazy in the background. Not sure if you guys can hear that. Offensive line, Cade Wass looks decent. We'll see if Calvin Anderson makes the team at tackle. Guard, there's some younger guys, although unfortunately, like players like Liam Warnadell and Charles Turner. But we'll see if they can sneak onto the roster. Defense is kind of not too much difference. I talked about Jeremiah Farms last week. He looks good. And other than that, those are the ones I wanted to highlight. But I'm going to have to cut myself short here. So hope you guys have a great night.
All right.
All right, Tyler.
Thanks for coming up, man.
See you next week, man.
Again next week.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Tyler, for coming on.
All right, Brett, talk about the bottom end of your roster, man.
Yeah, we really don't have one right now. I mean, it's kind of too many injuries, but for me, I mean, it comes down to, who's going to be the backup quarterback right now? Is Mitch Trubisky going to be placed on the physically unable to perform list towards the end of training camp? And maybe he'll miss the 4 weeks with what's supposed to, or I'm not really sure exactly what it is, but this speculation is that it might be a torn MCL, what he has. So it could be a 4 to 6 week issue. And if the Bills want to, they could get Ben DiNucci as the backup quarterback, or do they decide to go out and poach somebody off of another roster, somebody like a Spence or Skylar Thompson, or even a Taylor Heineke that has been mentioned, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson, another guy that's on the Cleveland Browns bubble of making the roster. that could be another guy that we look at. But right now, I mean, all the injuries.
I'm pretty sure Keith will fly down to Miami and Uber him up for you.
Yeah, I'll pack his bags for him, shake his hand, send him packing to Buffalo. Look, if Skylar Thompson's starting football games for you this year, Brett, you got problems.
Yeah.
Trust me. If Josh Allen isn't starting the football game, Josh Allen isn't starting football games for us, we're going to have problems. And I'm saying that respectfully. I mean, you know, at this point right now, I don't know what the Bills are going to look like if they don't have Josh Allen out there on the field. And that's going to be really tough.
Yeah, no, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. Any of the other players you mentioned, Andreessen is going to be a nice depth piece for you. You're expecting him to make the 53. Any other surprise guys you think might make the 53?
Other than that, I mean, really, there really isn't anybody that I'm surprised about. With the linebacking room, I think there's just so many injuries that we have that I'm not surprised that Andreessen will make the roster. Nick Morrow hasn't practiced at all in training camp or even played in the preseason game. We're getting some guys back in Mike Edwards as well as Cole Bishop, but this team looks like a team that, you know, is going to have their 53 guys that nobody's going to really surprise. The only guy that I think could make the roster that would probably surprise a lot of people is going to be Tyrell Shavers. But with the injuries to the wide receiver room and Valdez-Scantling having a neck strain, I'm not going to really be surprised with that either. I mean, it just comes down to you got 16 players right now that are injured, and there could be more after this week.
Yeah.
So it comes down to are these players going to make the team or are they not?
Yeah, for sure. And who's going to be healthy by the time the 53 cuts come? Yeah, no, I was about to point out, like, Jessica always takes a dump on me for being a Jets fan and being positive at the same time. Like, how do I get through one day to the next if I'm a Jets fan and I'm not optimistic? Like, if I'm not optimistic based on what I've gone through in my entire life, like, I throw it end it now.
Jessica, thanks for tuning in, though. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much for popping in, Jessica.
Matt Chatter, great to see you, man.
Yeah, Matt Chatter, Dolphins best running back core in the AFC East. Caveat when healthy.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's true. I think Breece Hall is the best running back in the NFL.
Maybe, but the best running back core, I would take the Dolphins.
I don't know, man. Braden Allen, absolute savage. Absolute savage.
We'll see.
Yeah, we will. You'll see. Week, I think 7 is the first week we play, so
yeah,
we play late this week.
Yeah, we do. It's actually later than that, I think.
You might be right.
We played twice in the last 6 weeks. Anthony.
I think both games happen after our bye, and we have another super late bye.
Well, the Dolphins have a week 6 bye this year. I hate it.
No, our bye.
Okay,
yeah.
When's your bye week?
It's like week 11.
I'm jelly.
It's super late, man.
I'm jelly.
All right, bottom of the Jets roster. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly because I want to see if we can get out like before an hour and a half. Wouldn't that be sweet?
Yeah.
So I'm expecting the Jets are going to wind up keeping 6 receivers, but like that would necessitate something like either cutting Herb Charles or getting a trade for Alan Lazard. I don't know, man. Like neither one of those are particularly great options to me because Herb Charles is actually good and Alan Lazard is way overpaid but has guaranteed money, so it ain't great. Jets, I'm expecting to keep 8 offensive linemen, which means that if we keep 9, it's going to include a guy named Xavier Newman, who has been fantastic in the preseason. He's stuck around the practice squad all last year. Had like a high 70s PFF grade so far this year. I don't know if that means that we cut Max Mitchell or what we're going to do at backup tackle because Olu Fashanu is obviously the backup left and right tackle. Shout out to Olu. He played right tackle this past week, and he was great. So like that dude is so good. That dude is so good. I think we're going to keep 4 running backs, 2 quarterbacks. I don't think Jordan Travis even makes the team, or they just like put him on the pup or something like that and stash him. But like, we're only keeping 2 on the active roster. It's going to get real wonky when we get to the defensive line because, like I mentioned, Hassan Reddick, they have to keep on the roster, but like he's never going to be there. So I don't know what the plan is for that. After that, it's going to be Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald. It's going to be some combination of Michael Clemens, Tack McKinley. I would like to see them keep about 9 defensive linemen. 5 linebackers is what I'm expecting. Bottom of the roster, a guy that might still make the roster, might still make the team, a guy named Chaz Surratt, chronically hurt, but like when he plays, he is a really, really interesting linebacker for us. Always plays special teams, like a core special teams guy, but like over the last 3 years, he's gotten to the point where he looks like he might actually be capable of starting. I wonder if they would even consider cutting Zaire Barnes, who's a draft pick from them last year. He just hasn't been good. Another thing that's complicating things is a guy named Jarek Bernard Converse, our highest graded player by PFF in the entire preseason. He's a backup cornerback. He was like a 6th-round pick, not this year, but like last year. He was a safety cornerback for LSU, and then for the Jets, he's been a straight drafted as safety, converted back to cornerback, and has been a baller in the preseason games. Quintez Stiggers is going to be a backup for us. I could also possibly see them cutting a Brandon Eccles, but like when I did my 53 exercise, they came up with 56. So like the opposite problem like Keith. It's going to be interesting to see who winds up sticking and who doesn't. Because we have too many players and too few roster spots again this year. Joe Douglas usually does good work in trades. I would say Hassan Reddick was dumpster fire, but like he does a good job with bottom end of the roster construction. So this is gonna be a pretty good team, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say. See, I guess your problem was worse than mine. Having a 56-man roster for 53 spots, but
yeah,
still, I went through and I had 47, and I was like, how am I supposed to fit, 6 guys into these last? How am I supposed to fit 6 guys in these last?
See, that's the thing, though. You know that for a fact when they get to the 53, they wait for everybody else to start waiving players, and they just start grabbing guys anyway. Like, ultimately, if you have a week 47, you know that you can pull 4 or 5 guys from out there in waivers because you can offer them actual roster spots as opposed to, other teams that might not have that same opportunity. Mad Chatter, do a 30-second summary on the running back, wide receiver, and tight end core, please. Running back core is going to be 4 running backs. It's Breece Hall, number 1. Number 2 is going to be Braden Allen. Number 3, 4 is going to be Izzy Abanikanda / Isaiah Davis. Wide receiver core is going to be a pretty easy Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams / Malachi Corley for the 1, 2s, and 3s. Xavier Gibson's going to fit in there somewhere. Alan Lazard's still getting paid, so then that only leaves 1 spot for Irving Charles and Jason Brownlee at the exact same spot. That is my cat going nuts right now. Give me 10 seconds. I'm sorry. Oh,
Brett, go with your who are your running backs, wide receivers, tight ends?
Yeah, running backs is going to be James Cook leading the way. Number 2 is going to be either Ty Johnson or you add in Ray Davis. And then possibly a 4th, if he makes the roster as a special teams player, Darrington Evans or even Frank Gore Jr. But I expect them to try and scoop him and put him on the practice squad. Wide receiver is going to be leading the way. Curtis Samuel, questionable because he's injured right now. So he has turf toe. So that's going to be something to keep an eye out. But you have Keon Coleman behind him, Khalil Shakir. MVS out there, Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Isn't he hurt too, Brett?
He's injured as well. He has a neck strain, so could be placed on the PUP list again. Then you have Tyrell Shavers behind him, and don't forget about Mac Hollins as well. Tight end room, you have Dalton Kincaid at number 1. Then you have Dawson Knox. Quentin Morris is injured, another player that's week to week with another injury. So Then you have Zach Davidson, who was converted from a punter actually a few years ago as an undrafted free agent to a tight end, and he led the Bills last week with 27 yards and was a leading receiver. So pretty impressive there.
Just real quick for the Dolphins, we have Mostert, Achane, Wright, top 3 running backs, and then I have Jeff Wilson making the roster behind those guys. So that's 4. At wide receiver, Tyreek, Waddle. I have Washington. I had Craycraft making the final 53. Now I'm going to go with Eric Ezekama and Willie Snead making the Dolphins' final 53 roster, and Braxton Berrios. He's going to be their primary return man.
Braxton Berrios on the team?
Yeah, he's been their primary return man, Anthony. I mean, no, in all honesty, like, you know, the argument about whether or not he's going to make an impact at receiver for the Dolphins is probably dead at this point. You've won that one, but he's still going to be their primary return man. He's been good in that area. He's been solid at punt returns primarily.
Okay.
At tight end, I have the Dolphins keeping 3 guys: Jonnu, Durham Smythe, and Julian Hill. Tanner Conner was a guy who was making an impact for them, but he's hurt again. He's another guy that hasn't been able to stay healthy.
He's an undrafted free agent out of like Princeton or something like that. Super freak athlete.
Yeah.
He's been hurt for a couple of years.
He made some great plays in week 1 of the preseason, but got hurt and didn't play in week 2. Doubtful to play week 3. It's just, I feel bad for the kid because he's been snake bit by injuries the same way Eric Ezekama has been.
I remember that dude was an absolute freak of nature. He was like 230 pounds, ran like a 4.3 40, something like that.
Yeah, and he had a really long reception in week 1. He was looking really good. Yep. Mike McDaniel loves him. Mike McDaniel absolutely loves the kid, but you know, can't stay healthy. What are you supposed to do with a guy like that?
Yep. Well, that's what the pup is for.
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, I didn't get to the Jets tight end room, but it's Tyler Conklin, and then that's it. Like, if Tyler Conklin gets hurt, we don't have another tight end really that matters. We have Jeremy Ruckert on the roster. I get it. We have Kenny Ebola. Whatever. Like, the Jets are scary if Rodgers stays healthy for sure. We have the weapons. We have a very well-built roster. It's just a function of whether or not we can actually keep the offense afloat if Rodgers goes down. My bet is, maybe because Tyrod Taylor is at least a decent backup, but he wasn't even good in the preseason. We didn't play him that much, but he wasn't even good. Like this week 2, we didn't play Tyrod Taylor. It was like the 3rd and 4th string quarterbacks going. So like,
yeah, but you know who the backup's going to be, Anthony. There's no real point in playing Tyrod, is there?
That's fair. It's just get the fans' juices going.
Yeah, true. It's been
a long time since we had a good team. All right, guys. Final words. What do you have for me, Keith?
Final word is what I've been saying the past few weeks. Football is almost here. I couldn't be more excited. I know you guys can't be any more excited. Now, next week, Anthony and I are going to be debuting a show on Thursday night where, throughout the season, we're going to be giving picks. But next Thursday, we're going to be giving you guys predictions. NFL-wide predictions. Division winners, conference champions, Super Bowl winners. I know Anthony's excited for it. I know I'm excited for it.
Can't wait.
So we're gonna debut that next Thursday. And during the season, we're going to be doing predictions for the week. So we're going to be giving you guys our picks and keeping track, and winner gets bragging rights. So that's going to be fun, and we're going to be debuting that. We got some fun things coming up this season, and of course, Nickel City Mafia. Of course, our AFC East Summit show. Tune in on Sundays. Tune in to see Brett and Sean on Fridays. Red, White, and Ruthless
on Saturdays.
On Saturdays, sorry, Saturdays. So and I think there's a show at 9:00 tonight for our fantasy show. So that's in 4 minutes. So tune into that as well.
We got to get off. Brett, what do you have for us?
I'll keep it short and sweet. This is the time of the year that things start to hurt for the NFL, especially when you go from 90 players down to 53 players. And some people's dreams die, and they get the opportunity to play in the NFL. Very short, but I want to say to everybody else that comes into the NFL and has been a part of every organization, you know, your dreams came true and everything, but keep your head up and always remember that, you know, you've gotten to the highest point that so many people don't get to. The 1% of people that get to go into the NFL, it's incredible. And I wish all of them the best, the players that don't make the roster. And if you do, welcome to the Buffalo Bills. But if you don't, you know, wish you best wherever you go and stay healthy.
Absolutely, guys. Keep your dreams up. Keep your dreams alive. I know the NFL is not going to work out for you, but like it's entirely possible that you can be a perfectly serviceable insurance salesman. All right. You just, you know, keep playing the backups, guys.
And can I answer a question real quick, if you don't mind? Can you pull up Jessica Tennis's question real quick? She's asking about the fantasy league that we play. Actually, if you don't mind, Jessica, go on Instagram, just DM me, Go Bills Podcast. I'll give you all the information if you're interested, and we can talk about it then.
Yeah. We could use another member, correct? We are letting go of the one dude that refused to do the one thing we all agreed would do, which was like 24 hours in Waffle House.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, refused to do it. Not coming back, bro. Not welcome. Not welcome. Not my league. Not the league I win. With that, let's go ahead and let's call it a night. Keith, lead us out.
Fins up.
Brett,
Go Bills.
take flight.
Have a good night, guys.